everyone, this is Direwolf20, and welcome to episode 4 of Direwolf20's Dyson Sphere program Let's Play series, where I'm excited to be playing around, getting ready to automate foundations, because that's going to be a huge job for us. Again, very kind of like not a great design, but I'm just working within the boundaries that I have right now, which is specifically encapsulated by these oceans all around me. So I'm kind of just getting the ball rolling. And we'll wind up making things better in the near future, I assure you. For now, though, what I want to do is get foundations crafting. So let's go set that up real quick. So I would like some foundation crafting to happen here, and I will copy and paste you. To make that work, we're going to need some of you and some of you. That should be cool. Now it looks like we need a healthier amount of that stuff, so we might want that to happen. Keep an eye on your inputs. Make sure you're inputting enough resources, right? So we needed more stone brick, obviously, coming here. And then I can very quickly kind of set up a little doohickey like this. And I should really look at getting these kind of buildings automated, but that's going to come as soon as I have access to have a little bit better setup, really. That might be cool. Look at it go. Foundations for days. I'm not going to limit this. I want this thing running, like, all the time, is effectively the case. Like, I want this thing going ham. I want to have lots and lots and lots of foundations. So we're going to let this thing fill up. And if I remember correctly, foundations stack to a pretty high number. So that'll be good. Cool? All right. So let's look at doing some upgrades today. There's a few things I want to do. Number one, I want to focus on upgrading my mech a little bit. Having some better things like run speed and inventory capacity, all these upgrades that occur down the line here will be nice to have. So I'll probably start kicking off some upgrades there. Now, this particular upgrade uses items. It's one of the few ones that still does, which is fine. We'll let that happen, and it's manual research, so none of my research factories are involved in making this happen, right? Not going to worry too much about getting that to happen. I don't even know if they can research with things that aren't matrices. I think if you're doing any research that aren't matrices, which is only kind of early game stuff, then you have to do it with your mech. So not a big deal. Let's see. How's my base kind of doing here? Not bad, honestly. Looking forward to being able to run a little bit faster so I can explore this world a little bit better. Yeah, not too shabby. Let's come back when this research is done, and then we'll kind of go from there. Alright, looking like run speed's about to improve a little bit. Let's start walking and see what a difference this makes. Last one. So a little bit faster, +1 mecha movement speed. So we went from 6 to 7. So not a huge increase, but definitely noticeable. The one thing I do want to get that's very noticeable, though, is drive engine. This unlocks mecha flight. So in order to get this guy cooking, we're going to need a little bit of coal in our inventory to do the research. So let's run a little bit faster now. So you can see when I hit space, I kind of just jump at the moment. That's about to change. Let's get a couple hundred of these guys, and we'll be back in a minute. Now, while we're up here at our coal area, we can start looking at something new. Last episode, right at the end, we learned how to make Energized Graphite. So what this stuff is, a purified version of raw coal that you can use for fuel. So you'll notice that the fuel chamber gem is plus 50%. Energy is 6.75 megajoules, compared to coal, which is 2.7 megajoules. Pretty cool. Now, it takes 2 coal to make one of these energized graphites. It also requires a little bit of power in a smelting facility or in the player's handmade replicator. But we're going to be automating this. So basically, you take 2 coal, you condense it into 1 energized graphite, and there's a net gain in power, probably partially offset by the power that goes in, but it's 100% useful to do. And hey, we just unlocked Mecha Flight. We can now fly. Hooray!
You have received the ability to fly. Double-click the space key to lift off, and then use the arrow keys to control mecha movement.
Huzzah!
Moving speed will increase by 150% with more energy consumed under flight mode. Pressing the Alt key can return the mecha to the ground during the flight.
Look at that. We have flight mode. Now notice my energy on the bottom. 3 left red arrows is definitely meaning that we are very, very much consuming of power when we're flying, but don't worry. Don't worry too much. We have access to things like energy circuits, plus 200 kilowatt mecha fuel power. That looks good. I think I can activate that, dude. Now, in order to unlock this, we are going to need a handful of those things that we were just talking about, right? So let's get 60 of them. Is that what I need? That should be cool. And then we're also going to need a little bit of wood. But this should increase... Oh, and I'm also out of fuel, so that absolutely doesn't help. Not the end of the world. There we go. Cool. Erase that litter. Awesome. All right, so we're manufacturing this stuff, but let's cut out all this stuff for a moment, because what I want to do, my energy is going to deplete soon enough. So let's actually, I'm going to throw 100 of those in there. It should be enough. Let's get some smelters cooking here, because the arc smelter is where we're going to wind up making the energized graphite. So I'm gonna do something along these lines. Cool. Okay, so current core gen is 800, fuel is 800 kilowatts, so 80 and 800. I'm pretty sure the energy circuit that I'm currently researching, the higher the fuel chamber's power, the faster mecha converts fuel into energy. Okay, cool. Let's see what happens. Which number bumps up here? Core power gen, fuel power gen, or both? I guess we're going to find out in about 5 seconds, give or take. Right? So it's 80 for core power gen, it's 800 for fuel power gen. 80 and 1 megawatt. So look at that, plus 200 kilowatts mecha fuel power. So our fuel power gen has increased, which is cool. So now we're getting 1 megawatt of power per second-ish, I guess. So that looks good to me, right? Cool. So I'm gonna copy and paste this design a little bit, right? What I think I'll probably want to do is make sure that we've got enough of this laid out. How about 4 of them? That sound like a good plan? Now you're complaining of not enough power, mostly on account of the fact that we don't have our power facilities up and running yet. So we're about to fix that problem. Well, actually, I'm going to cancel you for a sec. Let's get like that going. Is that cool? Beautiful. Now, how's our power situation looking? Ha ha ha! Generation capacity is quite good, thank you very much. Sweet. Alright, so your generation capacity is quite a bit higher. Just to confirm this real quick, I just want to be sure of how this works. and to show you guys, right? I'm gonna grab one piece of fuel here. So actually, this is the whole power grid. Let me take you away. And if you're far enough away from all your power stuff, you have your own separate grid. So let's compare the amount of power produced from one piece of coal. Generation capacity 2.16 megawatts. megawatts. So I guess they produce the same amount of power per second, but I'm suspecting that the power lasts longer, is what my expectation would be. So these things are still better than just straight up coal. And same for my mecha suit, by the way. 1 megawatt of power, if I take this out and throw this in, it's 1.5 megawatts of power. So that's kind of cool. What I might wind up doing here is something like this, and then I'm gonna have it like keep that many. That seems like a good plan to me, right? I like that idea. Now what's your deal? You're not getting coal fast enough. That is now no longer a problem in theory. So you can kind of see me planning for the future a little bit here, but I'm obviously not doing a great job of planning for the future. Again, a big limitation is the small footprint of land I've got to work with. But overall, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. You can, by the way, manually place resources inside blocked chests like this. So this red line only is based on capacity for automation. You can still manually insert items there. So that's kind of cool. So obviously we're producing a lot more power now when we're using this stuff, the Energized Graphite, which is a good time. I might throw one more of you guys in here, just to make sure that we're really producing enough Energized Graphite to satisfy all the needs. That looks pretty good. We'll just make sure that we don't backstuff this line anytime soon, and then we'll be fine. And now, how are you in terms of producing enough? You seem like you're doing okay-ish. We might have a slight net loss on production here. So if that happens, we might need a second miner for coal. But for now, I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of power, right? Not too shabby. And then we can keep our fuel chamber nice and full. And now that we've upgraded both our energy circuit and gotten better fuel, our flight mode ain't too shabby. Look at that. I mean, it's still draining quite a bit. When you're trying to go higher, it really drains. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Now, if we wanted to, we could also upgrade... Well, let's see. What upgrades can we apply? Can we get Mecha Core 2 yet? No, that requires red. That requires red things that we're not at yet. Inventory capacity is always kind of nice. We could activate this dude. Now, if you're like me and you get impatient moving around, you do get that 50% speed boost, right? So you do move a little bit faster when you're flying. So it's kind of a nice benefit to keep in mind. How are we doing with these guys, by the way? Look, we already have 400 of them. I think it stacks either to 500 or maybe even 1,000. Like, literally 1,000 foundations is what it stacks up to. And you might be saying to yourself, Direwolf, that's a ridiculous number. And you're not wrong. What I could do here to speed this up, by the way, this should saturate the line now. Perfect. See? You gotta think about the travel time for those things. So this guy hasn't really been running very efficiently on account of the fact that he wasn't getting enough stone, but now he is. Beautiful. See, I nerd out over factory games. I really do like them. I hope you guys too, because obviously I'm making more and more videos about them. You know, we played Satisfactory, now we're playing Dyson Sphere. But like this whole optimizing and automating and you know, like clearly right now our problem is we're not producing these fast enough, right? Now, part of the problem is we should upgrade these guys, right, to be able to maintain the amount of magnets we need. So that'll help. But we might need a second one of these. And we obviously haven't given ourselves the room required to make a second one of these. So we're going to have to, like, refactor this whole factory area, obviously, in the near future. But I'm just showing you guys some upgrades that I can get now, showing you guys the new power gen options we have. So power-wise, we should be really good for a while. Wow, we're good, but we're not that good. We're still using, like, 2/3 of our power. Yeah, we're consuming right around 12 megawatts, and our capacity is 17 megawatts, so we got a little bit of a ways to go. So this just expanded my inventory. Hooray! Minor upgrade, but still, nice. And yeah, as you guys can see, we are absolutely not doing good enough here. So a second miner might not be a bad... And by the way, miners can 100% overlap with other things that are being mined by other miners. So even though these nodes are being mined by this miner, that's okay. Not a big deal. Maybe I should upgrade another construction drone. That sounds like a good time to me. Having 4 construction drones at a time rather than just 3 will make my mecha be able to build faster, which just sounds lovely. And I think I can queue things. So if we add drone engines here and then queue that, you'll notice that we now have a queue up here. We're researching the faster drones. After that's done, we're going to do drone engines. And then that might be a good time for me to jump into, oh, hey, thanks, construction drones +1. What should we get into next? Ooh, high efficiency plasma is kind of nice. Because that gets me access to a really nice wireless power tower. Pretty good time. Fluid storage encapsulation gets me access to the water pump and storage tanks, and then leads into basic chemical engineering. All kinds of good stuff there. So let me kick off some of these. So drone engine level 1, plus 2 meter per second construction drone flight. So now our construction drones fly faster. Let's kick off this dude and this dude. And can I get to this yet? That requires reds. Titanium smelting requires reds. Crystal smelting requires reds. Solar collection I could do. That's not a bad one. Not a bad one. Semiconductors I could do, which leads to processors. Deuterium requires reds. We'll be getting to that eventually. So high efficiency plasma control is pretty neat. Oil extractors, that's going to be a thing, and oil refineries, 100% a big part, because that'll lead to unlocking red researches. Let's just queue that up so that, like, our research is running. You don't want to go too fast on research if this is your first time playing the game, though, because, you know, you kind of, like, I just unlocked a bunch of stuff, right? So we want to, you know, pay attention to what we've unlocked. Like, I need to look at, well, water pump's not so important, but these things, I probably want to automate my prisms and my plasma exciters. Both of these are something you might want to automate, and wireless power towers are a cool thing to get. We'll talk about all that stuff in just a minute. I'm debating right now in my brain, do I want to... Like, right now we've got 728 foundations, which is great. Really great. I'm loving that. And is our steel good? Our steel's pretty good. I wouldn't mind throwing another one of these here just to make sure we're saturating the belt and making sure that we're sending enough steel in, because now we're slacking on steel on this end. So that should help. But keeping these things running and happy is pretty important job. Pretty important job. I might even... And I say it's important mostly because we've got so much water around us, right? So from my playthrough where we have a lot of water, probably important to keep that thing going as fast as we can. For somebody else's playthrough where water is less of a problem, maybe not as important. You know, we'll see. Now, it might make sense for me to... Hey, plasma extraction. Cool. We'll talk about that stuff in a minute, because that's going to be one of the next very important tasks that we do. Awesome. Looking good. I want to draw your attention to the production graph. Look how much iron I'm making per minute. Look how much iron I'm using per minute. That's bad. That is bad. That is a very net loss of iron. You'll notice that I had a full storage Mark 1 of iron here. That is no longer the case. We are very quickly going to need more storage production happening. So we very much need to start thinking about refactoring the design of our factory. But I really want to build up a few more of these dudes so that we have enough, right, to satisfy me. Now, I do want to show you that 1,000 is the stack limit. So if I take these 4, we'll see we're now at 1,000, right? And then a new stack forms. So 1,000 foundation per stack. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. Now, is stone production also struggling? It is. It very much is. So that one's a little bit easier to extend. So that would be here. There you go. And maybe the key would be upgrading these guys. Lack of replacing item? Oh, yeah. No, I don't. I have it. There you go. Make sure we're inserting just as fast as we're extracting. Never hurts. Cool. Alright, come back in a minute once I've got just a few more of these. Is there any other upgrades to my mecha that I would like to do? Mass construction does sound cool. Just not quite sure there if I want to do that yet. Let's unlock universe exploration. Able to view veins distribution on the planet. What this does is when you look at your planetary view, see how it tells me we don't know how many of each resource is available? Now we know how many of each resource is available. So these are all the resources.
Unlocked the universe exploration. Now you can click the Details Display button in the lower right corner of the screen to open real-time distribution details of the ore veins.
Look at that. That is cool. So you can actually look at your planet and see how much how much of each resource is in a vein. So 376,000 iron there. This copper is a very small vein, only has 5,000 in it. There's some crude oil resources available to us. It makes it a lot easier to find resources, and since we just unlocked crude oil, not going to be a terrible thing to make that look better. So yeah, we can get a good idea of how much copper and iron are in each of these nodes that are all across the planet. We can also see from a planetary perspective the total amount of iron and copper available. You'll also notice that there's some resources we haven't seen yet, and there's a very good reason we haven't seen them. They don't exist on this planet. There is 0 silicon and 0 titanium on this planet. There's a healthy amount of stone and a ton of coal. There's water on this planet, which is nice. If you're saying to yourself, why are they telling me the ocean type is water? You might also be telling yourself, does that mean there are other ocean types on other planets? Yes. You can also see the wind energy ratio and the solar energy ratio. This information tells you how much energy you'll get from windmills and solar panels. Some planets are closer to their star, and as a result, you get more solar energy. Some planets are windier or less windy. So wind and solar, that's pretty neat, right? You can also see crude oil exists here, and overall how much crude oil you'll be able to produce on this planet. We'll get to talking about crude oil pretty soon. So that's kind of that first unlock there that we've got. Now, universe exploration, able to view vein reserves in the whole planetary system. Yeah, we'll probably unlock that soon. Let's just see if there's anything else I want to take a look at here. None of this stuff is super important. Vertical construction needs reds. Veins utilization is nice. Reduces ore consumption per miner product, so basically makes it more efficient, and higher mining speed. Both of those are neat. But nothing else I want to focus on right now. So let's look at maybe refactoring our factory a little bit, or do we want to do a couple bits of more automation and refactor next episode? So I've done a minor tweak here. I just want to show you. Instead of emptying the storage container now, I am just kind of like I did up here. I'm just using the storage container to store a few resources that I'm going to want. The reason to do this is twofold. One, you can have faster flow of belts. This is no longer a bottleneck. And two is you're always going to have some resources for your player to grab. So if I needed stone right now and I hadn't done this and this chest was empty, I would have no access to stone, right? Like, it's all gone. I don't have any. Now what I'm doing is building up a little buffer for my player to grab as needed. And then once this backstuffs, all stone production will go towards making foundations for me, which, like I said, we're going to need a little bit of. So what I've decided is next episode I will do factory refactoring. This episode I want to spend a few more minutes, because we're getting not super close to the end, but close enough that I don't want to start a whole big refactoring project. What I want to do is show you some of the things that we got access to. So first off, I'm going to show you the wireless power tower. This thing's pretty neat. I'm going to get 5 of them. So to make these, we need glass to turn into prisms. So prisms is just glass, if I remember correctly. Let's see, components. Prisms is just 3 glass is 2 prisms, right? And then prisms plus the coils gets me these plasma exciters. And then you use the plasma exciters to get wireless power towers. So if we want to automate these at some point, which we might, we can do. So these things do twofold. First off, they have a really long distance from which they can connect to things. So look how far away they reach.
You built a wireless power tower,
Look at that.
which is suitable with long-distance power transmission caused by its longer connection distance. What's
Cool.
exciting is that it can also charge mecha by using electricity from the grid.
Correct. So if your mecha is standing within the circle, see my power at the bottom? Check that out. How cool is that, huh? Now here's another cool trick that I'm going to show you with these little towers. And it's not something you'll use too much, if I'm being honest. But if you've got 4 towers overlapping, they will recharge your mech 4 times faster. All of them charge it. Look at that. Now, obviously, we don't have infinite power here, so we're training. Our consumption demand is quite high because we're trying to charge our mech, right? But it's a neat thing to have a few of them. It's basically your long distance power poles. So if you need to run some power poles really far away, I think they're not as big. If you've played Factorial, this might be a similar concept to you. So they don't cover as large of a range for supplying power to your buildings as the Tier 1 power poles do, but they absolutely reach a lot further than your Tier 1 power poles would. So Tier 1 power poles go to about this far away. Tier 2 power poles go significantly further-ish, right? So that's pretty neat. Speaking of power, my mecha suit fuel chamber is empty, which is why my fuel thing down here is so empty. So let's go grab and do that. And now we're in much better shape. Beautiful. All right, so that's that. I also kind of want to talk about oil a little bit. I don't want to like super get deep into oil production at the moment, but we did get access to an oil refinery or 2. And I think that we also got access to the oil extractors, which we can make a few of. See how nice it is to be able to come over here and be like, I need more stone? And refilling your inventory every now and then to restock is not a bad idea. I should probably have a dedicated restocking area where like I go to collect all the components I'll need. Now, some people set up assemblers for their buildings. Some people just set up assemblers for the raw materials, and then, like, you know, you let your mecha build what you need, right? So, like, right now, I've got a decent amount of conveyor belts. If I wanted more, I could just craft them, but that requires me carrying around iron and gears, right? Or I could set up auto-crafting for the conveyor belts, and then not have to carry that stuff around. You know what I mean? Maybe carry them around a little bit for the occasional odd item, but not a big deal. Awesome. This is actually coming along really nicely. Steel's kind of struggling a little bit. And iron is definitely hurting. So we're going to very much want to ramp up Yeah, we need to refactor this whole factory next episode. Now that I've got foundations and I can kind of expand into the watery areas a little bit better, I think that's probably what we're going to focus on doing next episode for sure. But yeah, we're overall okay here. Cool. Do we want to take a quick look at what oil looks like? I don't want to build the oil stuff right next to my current base because I'm going to be refactoring in a minute, but is there an oil seep vein nearby-ish? You can kind of see them, and by the way, you can turn these off if it bothers you that they're on, but you can kind of see things from a distance a little bit when you're flying around out here. So there's a couple crude oil veins, but they're kind of like right on top of some of the other things I've already built. Looks like there's one over here, and you can see each vein has a production per second number, so you can have an idea of how much oil you're going to produce per second. And it's probably a good idea that we set up... Look how far this reaches, by the way. Pretty good distance. So right now, we can set up oil extractors. Now, there's no fluid mechanics in this game yet, per se. Not really. So when you produce crude oil, you still pipe it out on belts. Hey, look, I've got 4 little robots building now. Isn't that better? So you can see here, this is crude oil. If you want to, you know, consider that that's maybe like packaged up some way, feel free. And then what we've unlocked now is the ability to extract oil and then process it using this dude, which is a processor for oil. Okay. And the only recipe that this thing has right now is
multiple products. To divide them, you need to set a filter on the sorter. You can use Tab or the arrow keys on the right side of the keyboard to quickly set the filter when building the sorter.
So basically, this is the very first building that has multiple outputs. Okay, so let's take a look at this real quick before we wrap up the episode. So I'm going to insert our oil here, and he's going to start breaking that oil down into 2 components: hydrogen, fuel, and refined oil. And you can see the ratio is 2 oil to 1 hydrogen. And each of these components is going to be important for stuff. So now what we want to do is extract that, right? And we want to have them on separate belts, presumably. So to set that up, when you extract items, you can specify. See on the right over here, there's a filter extract. We can filter hydrogen or refined fuel or nothing. So I want to put, let's say, hydrogen on this belt and refined fuel on that belt. And then that's what it's going to do. Cool. So with that, it's probably wrapping up point. Now, in fairness, I probably should have reversed that because it's 2 refined oil to 1 hydrogen. So I should probably have the refined oil on the closer belt, but this is kind of a temporary setup anyway. So we could just droop that stuff out, and then we could have a similar setup and just, you know, reverse that, right? So maybe we'll have refined fuel and hydrogen like that. Cool. Now, you'll get refined fuel, you'll get refined oil and hydrogen in your inventory. You can carry them around in your mech like every other resource. So yeah, I'm carrying hydrogen around. Let's just assume it's in some kind of containment vessel. You'll also notice it has a significant amount of energy and fuel chamber. So hydrogen and refined oil can both be used to generate power. Cool. So you can absolutely throw that in your mecha fuel chamber. You can absolutely do it for stuff. Now, this is something that I think has changed since I last played. Last time I played, oil seeps were always infinite. I think in the new version, the way oil seeps work is that they will eventually slow down. And that's also similar to how Factorial works. The oil seep will slow down over time because it'll kind of get depleted. So I think it's always infinite, but I think you'll get less and less oil per second over a period of time. Not 100% sure about that. But what I am 100% sure of is that it's wrapping up point. So we've got a little bit of oil processing going, not a ton, not that we need a ton just yet, but oil is absolutely going to be a component in making red research cubes, so it's going to be a major part of our next bit of progression. However, before that, I really want to refactor my factory because I want this thing to be ready to expand pretty significantly. So I want to make it so that I can easily do things like I need more of these electromagnetic coils, right? There's nowhere for me to do that right now. I've backed myself into a corner with my automation. And I said I was doing that, and I knew I was doing that, but pretty much because of the way our land foundation was set up, I needed to do that a little bit. Now that we've got, you know, a really nice bit of foundations going, I think that we can feel comfortable expanding out a little bit more and having a larger footprint. Like I can fill in this little lake over here and much more easily build off into this area of already existing land, and then as needed I can fill in some more areas of the ocean. However, wrapping up point. So, for now, Devil20 signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We'll come back next time, do a whole bunch more with Dyson Sphere Factory. We're just getting started on this game, and we have a lot more to do. Alright guys, take it easy.